So I'm going to start by cutting out my vinyl for this bag. I'm changing up the pattern just a little bit from how it is originally supposed to be made, but I mean, what's new? So instead of this like half moon connector, which can sometimes rip along this area, I'm gonna go ahead and use a connector from the Louise pattern, which is absolutely one of my favorites. And what I did with it is I just added an extra ½ inch or so on the top of the connector so that, again, it's not going to rip out of the bag. So for this bag, I'm using these templates. They're from topsandbobbins.com. They have amazing, amazing templates, and I honestly don't think I could get through a bag without them, especially when I have so many to make. So I am using a leather-backed, they call it leather-backed, but it just has like this really nice, almost cork feeling backing, and it's this really gorgeous navy vinyl. I'm going to be using that for the side pocket and the side panel. So that gives it like a nice clean look with your main fabric in the front being the focal point. With this, you got to pay attention to the front. There's a selvage that goes a little bit higher than what you'd normally think. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a little snip so that I know where that is. And I'm just using a ballpoint pen. You might have a fancier marker. I don't know, you do you. I'm just tracing around the pattern, taking note of the fold. This customer did not want a crossbody strap, so I'm not going to worry about cutting out the crossbody strap connectors. So we need 2 of these side panels. And this is actually one of my most requested bags, which is crazy to me. I love making this pattern, thank goodness, but I mean, it's hard to make the same bag over and over again. I did that wrong. I'll just go next to it. But I guess you just get better every time, huh? Tops and Bobbins does have pattern templates that are fussy cut versions, so what that means is it's not going to be cut on the fold, it's going to be your whole entire pattern piece, which depending on how many bags you make is worth the extra investment. Especially when you're working with vinyl and other fabrics. Why do I keep doing that? Every time I trace, it's in the way of what's above. Whatever. I think the pattern calls for 20-inch handles, but I cut them to 24 inches. My customers like the little extra height. But that is definitely different for everybody. Alright, so I have 2 of the side pockets, I have 2 of the side panels, so I'm going to set these aside so that I know I need to cut those out of lining fabric yet. And now I'm going to grab my bottom panel and I'm going to cut one of these. This is a nice straight piece. I can't mess this up. Aha, good. So I've got my one bottom panel, and I'm going to set this aside so that I know I need to cut it out of my lining. And then there are 2 pieces that need to be cut out of foam, so I like to keep those in a separate pile. And now I'm going to grab my strap connector. If you have a vinyl cutting machine like a Cricut or a Cameo, you can actually set up your machine to cut these out, which is a huge time saver if you can set it up to work right for you. Every time I try, something happens, so I've gotten so quick at tracing these and cutting them out that I don't worry about it. But if you have 5 or more of these to make it once, it's definitely going to save you a lot of time. And then if you feel like solid paper is too thin, you can actually laminate it or use a piece of tape even to laminate it, which is what I've done. Or you can cut it out of, the dollar store has a pack of cutting mats for $1. So that's another thing you could keep in mind. And we need a total of 4 of these. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And you don't want to trace these way too close to each other, or you will have trouble cutting them out nicely. All right. So now I can set my connector aside. We don't need it anymore. And I just need to trace out my handles. I have a 6" by 24" ruler. This is Omni Grip. So it's got like this non-slick, non-sliding backing to it, which is really nice. And for these connectors, it's 3/4 inch wide handles. So that would be 1.5 inches or 3 inches wide. So this handle, or this ruler, is really, really easy for coming up with that exact size. So I love this ruler. I'm sad every time I drop it on my friggin' tiled floor and crack every corner, but I continue buying them. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've marked out my 1.5" marks basically. So it's 1.5", 1.5", 1.5", 1.5", 1.5", but that comes to 2 3" wide straps. So now I can go ahead and cut these out. When I'm using all vinyl for the side pocket, I don't add any interfacing to that. And I'm using waterproof canvas for my lining, so I don't need to interface that either. So there is that. If it takes you a while to cut this out, a lot longer than me, it's okay. Again, I want to say I've probably made at least 100 of this bag, and I used to cut them out on my living room floor before I moved into this awesome house that has a great cutting table now, so don't be discouraged. If you're curious as to where I purchased this vinyl, I got it from a place called FM Stores in Springfield, Missouri. And you can call them and place an order, which is amazing. They have the best prices I've ever seen on vinyl, and they have so many different kinds. The last time I was there, I just kept pointing and I'd say, I want 2 yards of that, I want 2 yards of that, because it was just so inexpensive compared to most places. So here's my side panel. And I'm gonna put this in a different pile because I will be adding foam to those pieces. now this piece here you could save and make maybe like a zipper pull out of one of them, but I'm going to go ahead and toss it because none of them are really big enough for me to use. I'm going to cut out my bottom panel. So for the bottom panel, we have to fuse a piece of Peltex or stabilizer to it. And if you're new to bag making, it can get really complicated trying to center that and see where that 1/2 inch mark is. So what I used to do, and I'll do it for this one, is I would trace a little line that was 1/2 inches from all sides. And this would help me get my stabilizer nice and straight, and also kind of help me with my seam allowances. So disregard my mess up marks, but you can see 1/2 inch from all sides what that looks like, and that'll just help you get your Peltex or stabilizer nice and centered. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in a different pile also. And then instead of trying to cut out my strap connectors one by one from this giant chunk, I'm just gonna cut them out on a square and set it aside and then cut out my straps. You could use a rotary cutter as well. I'm just using scissors because I can. And that is all I need out of the vinyl. I hope. That's why people use a rotary cutter. Alright, so here is what I meant by 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And this just helps you center, fold your straps in when we go to sew the bag. So we're just going to cut it in half. You're not cutting on all of the lines. That would be bad. So now you have your 2 straps. And I can put this in the same pile as my slip pockets because I don't need to add any interfacing on those. So now I'm going to cut out my foam really quick so that that's out of the way as well. And I'm doing all of this while my heat press is warming up. So double check that it says side panel foam because you do not want to cut foam out of vinyl. Ask me why I know. Never mind, I'll just show you. Because I cut this out of vinyl the other day and it's the side panel foam. And I was like, dang it. So I might try and make like a scrunched down version of the Annette. I don't know. I've really been enjoying, this is called a Duo medium water erasable marking pen. It's really cool. It's like a felt tip marker, but the lines disappear over time. And it's a really nice dark line that I can actually see. But it can leave yellow spots if you're using it on your exterior fabric, so I try to avoid that. And this is Pellon fusible foam single-sided. They do have double-sided fusible, and that can come in handy if you're doing like a quilted bag where you can just fuse the pieces together and then quilt it so there's no shifting. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure when it would come in handy. there's one piece. And then once I get all of my interfacing cut out and ready to go, I'll turn you guys over to my heat press so you can see how fast interfacing can go when you have a heat press. Okay, so my side panel foam I've cut out too. I can put it in this bag so I know that I'm done and I don't have a big mess all over my table. Main panel foam. Good job, Lauren, good job. Small victories, guys. Is this too? Yeah. You can see my templates are covered in pen markings because of how often I've used them. I think this was one of the very first templates I bought because I had maybe 7 open orders for it. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need those. So for this piece, what I do now is I turn it upside down and line up those diagonal lines to save on foam. Because this stuff is expensive. And I'll cut this out in one big chunk so I can show you guys a little bit better of what I mean. Okay, so main panel foam, done. I've cut 2, don't need it anymore, put it in the bag. These are brand new scissors and they're cutting better than I'm used to. Okay, so here you can see the diagonal line that I traced against to save on foam. That stuff is not cheap. Okay, so now I'm gonna cut out those little side notches. And I just leave those on the ground for my cat to play with. Because why not? Okay, so there is our main panel foam cut out and ready to go. You can see these little notches here. So I can add those to another stack. I'm gonna cut out my Peltex. And this is an 11 by 4.5 inch piece. 11 by 4.5. I'm gonna grab my woven fuse. This is from Barb's. Oh no, wait, that's not what I do. I am using Decoville and woven fuse because I'm using a knit fabric for my bag. And those two together help eliminate the stretch of the fabric, and then the Decoville helps no wrinkles. Helps prevent wrinkles, I should say. Use your words. That's my Decoville heavy. Where's my Decoville light? Am I out? Am I ready for my big bolt of it? You'd think I'd have less of a hard time finding things, but I still do. Okay. I actually use so much Decoville, I bought a whole roll from Barb It shipped super fast to me, and I mean, it's on an awesome roll. What's not to be excited about? If you have never heard of Woven Fuse or Decoville, they are sold at gotinterfacing.com. Decoville comes in light and heavy, and Woven Fuse just comes in one weight, but I believe she has it in black and white, which is really nice. Woven Fuse is comparable to SF 101 or Shape Flex 101 by Pellon. It's a little bit thicker and just has a nicer finish. I can't describe why, but it just does. And then the Decoville is more like a Craft Fuse or 809, but a million times better quality. I will never again use anything else for the main parts of my bags, but I still use 809 when I am making wallets, because it's great for card slots and stuff like that. But for more expensive bags, this stuff is amazing. So I'm going to cut out 2 of my main panels, and that's it. And I could use a rotary cutter on this main panel, but whatever. And again, to save on interfacing, I'm just tracing one right side up and one upside down against the other. And tracing. The pattern has a little bit of an up curve on the edge. It's like a notch, and you want to make sure you trace that out well so you can see it later on, because that will help you get your bag nice and straight. Get those sides on really well. And then I've put the main panel template in another pile because I'm gonna need to cut out my lining still. And I am only cutting out this interfacing very specifically, so I want to make sure it's done right, and I'll show you why in a minute. Okay. Over here. So now I have my Decoville cut out, and I'm going to trace this out of my Woven Fuse as well, just really, not roughly, but quickly. I don't know how else to say it. Haphazardly, maybe? The way I cut in interface bags kind of evolves over time too, so if this is an older video and you've seen something different since then, I mean, cool. I've watched older videos in my sewing group and I'm like, whoa, that's not what I do anymore. Should probably update that. Okay. So now all of my interfacing is ready to go, and I'm going to cut out my lining, and then I'll cut out my final exterior pieces. And then in a separate video, you can watch me make the bag. So right now I'm going to find a nice lining fabric. I'm thinking a beige would have been good, but I don't have it anymore. The light pink is cute, but that's too much pink. I think maybe dark gray. That's the winner. So this is waterproof canvas. This is a really pretty light color, and I think that's gonna look really nice as the lining for this bag. So I have the wrong side facing up. And I'm just gonna zip through all these lining pieces, and I still have to cut out my 2 lining pockets, but there are no pieces for that. So one thing I like to do to kind of help me remember is I'll write on these with Sharpie, or I'll add a piece of tape that'll say like what size pieces I need to cut for the lining pockets and stuff like that. It comes in handy. I'll go ahead and try and use my rotary cutter for this. This waterproof canvas is just so thick that it's not always the easiest way to cut it. Alright, so we need 1 of these bottom pieces. Pile. And then my customer wants a slip pocket. This kind of seems like the right size, so I'm just gonna willy-nilly cut this out. Lining pocket. And now I'm completely done with my bottom piece, so I can go ahead and put that aside so I don't get confused. Okay, so I'm gonna cut out my side, cut out a main panel. Sometimes the angles get so weird. Okay, we've got one of our main panels. Put it in the pile. Looks like I've got enough for another main panel right here. Yes, I do. Doodly do. You can also use clips to hold your fabric on the fold. Comes in handy. And then if you want to use your erasable marking pen, you can trace it out. Oh my god, that's so cool. Where'd my scissors go? Here's my better scissors. this marking pen has like a little slit right there so you can like hang it off your neck and pop it on and off. I think that's adorable and I don't know why. Alright, so I've cut 2 of my main panel out of the lining so I can put that away, get it out of the way. And now we can cut out our side panels and pockets. So this piece of my fabric has a bit of a curve to it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut out one of these side panels. This waterproof canvas is $6.99 a yard, which is a lot cheaper than buying quilting cottons for your lining and then buying more interfacing and then interfacing that. And it's waterproof. Heck yeah. Okay, so now that I'm here, oh no, I'm gonna add piping, so I'll just clip it and stack it. And then kind of emulating what I did on with the exterior panels or the main panels, I'm turning this upside down so I can match those diagonal lines and save a little bit of fabric. So now I've cut out 2 of my side pockets from the contrasting fabric and the lining, so I can put that away. And now I just need to cut out my pocket and my side panels. Okay, so there's one side panel, one to go. So now I just need to cut out my lining pocket. Done with all that. And for the pocket, it's I know the measurements are given, but I don't remember. So I'm just gonna say 9 inches long or 9 inches wide by 7 inches. But that'll be by 14 inches because I need 2 of them. So 9 by 14 is what I'm cutting this pocket to. I don't know if that's right, I don't know if that's wrong, but that's what I'm doing. Oh, looks good. So here is my lining zippered pocket. I'm gonna add that to the stack. So I've got the bottom, the sides, the pockets, all that is done. So now I'm ready to interface, which is exciting. So I'm gonna go ahead and slowly turn you guys this way. Sorry, we're real professional here. This is my heat press. This is a 16 by 24 inch. I have a whole video on interfacing and using a heat press, so feel free to check that out. So I'm gonna lay my fabric face down on the heat press. And this is just a large piece of knit fabric. It's actually a pair of leggings that I'm repurposing. And I'm gonna lay my woven fuse face down on the fabric. I'm kind of fussy cutting. So bumpy side down, smooth side up, and then I'm gonna take my Decaville, shiny side up, and the straight side down, and I'm gonna lay that on top. Okay. And then I'm going to press it for about 10 seconds. Honestly, it doesn't even need that long, but may as well. Do, 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 do. Okay. Did it fuse all the way? Oh yeah, it totally fused all the way. So now, just gonna kind of move it, cut out my other one. So again, I'm gonna lay my woven fuse down, bumpy side down, smooth side up, sort of kind of fussy laying, I don't know, however you want to describe that. I'm gonna lay this on top. Press for 10 seconds. And now I'm going to cut this out of my fabric along the Decaville lines. I'm just gonna slide you over again. We're not done, but sorry if you have motion sickness. So I can just cut away the extra woven fuse and fabric, and I'm left with a nice sturdy piece of fabric. If you're making the Annette and you're using just regular cotton for your outside, woven fuse and the foam are enough, but if you want to add that extra oomph and thickness to your bag, you can use the Decaville too. So there's our main panel piece with the Decaville and woven fuse. It's a nice thickness, and then we're going to fuse the foam to that in a minute. want to make sure your pieces are cut pretty accurate, otherwise your seam allowances could get messed up, things won't fit properly. And that's where having templates really comes in handy, because after a while your paper pattern pieces are going to get a little smaller with how much you cut out your piece or trace around it. Things change, but a really nice thick piece of plastic, the templates, they're not much can happen to them. Unless you drop them, of course, like me. But there's my other piece. So we should be done at the cutting. So I'm gonna swing you around permanently. So for these, I'm gonna lay them fabric side up, and you're gonna line up the bottom foam. There should be a gap along the top. That's okay, you want that. And that is so it's not in your zipper seam allowance. If you're making your Annette out of, let's say, all vinyl, this is a step you'd want to skip, and you'd want to just baste it on using a stitch length in the 1/8 seam. So I'm going to press that for a few seconds. Oh yeah, she's nice and fused. And now I'm going to fuse my Peltex down, but first I'm going to add a layer of the Decoville Heavy or Decoville Light. This is just going to help reduce wrinkles that happen when you turn the bag. So 4 inches, 4.5 inches by 11. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So I just kind of heat up the Decoville by pushing it up against the top of the heat press with my fingernails, and that kind of activates the glue so that I can put it in place. And then with my Peltex, there's a bumpy side and kind of a smooth side. And you're gonna lay that over top. And then I spray it with a little bit of water. Again, that just helps activate the glue. And you want to make sure that your vinyl can withstand the heat. It is face down, but it still gets really hot. So you do not want to do it more than 10 seconds. Okay. So you can see my vinyl stood up to that okay. The texture didn't change. And the Peltex isn't quite fused, but that's okay. We're going to catch it with purse feet, and we're going to catch it with when we sew it in, but it's pretty well fused for the most part. And then for these side panels, I'm going to try and fuse it. It doesn't always work, especially since you cannot fuse the vinyl side up. It's gonna mess up your shiz, I'm telling you. Okay, so I'm lining those up at the bottom. Again, you're going to have a little bit of excess at the top. And then using this water will help activate the glue. You do not want to do this if you're using leather. You do not want to use any kind of water when you're interfacing with leather, because that's bad news. It's going to make your leather shrink, and it can stain it as well. See? So you can see the outside is still okay, but it's fused. That little bit of water really helps activate it. It's pretty. This is like a really fun steel navy vinyl. I don't know. I love it so much. All right, you guys, so congratulations. You finished interfacing the entire Annette, and now you're ready to move on to the next video where we sew it. Good job. You did it. You did great.